Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome here to Chicagoland Speedway for the Camping World 400, the playoff race number 127th race of the Winston Cup Series, getting set to start the playoffs for the Cup Series. And next week, it's just the Cup Series drivers because Trucks and Busch will take an off week next week. Monica Towns had a great, consistent regular season. Unfortunately, did not make the playoffs. She dropped all the way down to 18th position in the points table. So tough break for her. She's looking for her first win on the season, alongside of Ben Erickson, who comes into this race. Let me see, where is he in points? He fell all the way down to 39th position in the points. Playoff contender Todd Montgomery, the highest playoff contender, alongside is Kevin Joseph in the playoff grid. As you look at the rest of the playoff or the starting lineup, find out where your playoff drivers are running. A couple of things to mention before we get on to this. Courtney Lynn and Zachary Taylor did get back in the top 30 in points. There was just one problem. They were not high enough for their wins to count. So, heartbreaker for Zachary Taylor, who missed it by a couple of points, two to be exact, and also missed it by 6 points is Courtney Lynn, which they were supposed to hope that Kevin Joseph had trouble at 8 Bowl last week, and well, that didn't happen. So, yeah, let's get these cars rolling. Let's tell you who are the 16 drivers in this season's chase for the championship. As the field's rolling off, trying to make sure nobody's having troubles, so, which is good. The 16 drivers will have a C next to their name. They are Cody Smart, Ben Tennyson, A Crenshaw, J TwoTwo, Josephine Bouvier, J Harvick, B Barrett, A Aurora, Ashley Horton, Vanco Seaman, Ashley Reynolds, Todd Montgomery, Hannah Smith, Samantha Grainger, P Albanus, and Kevin Joseph, who snagged the last spot by 2 points. This is how their points are. Cody Smart won the regular season championship. He has a 7-point lead over Ben Tennyson, 10 over Annie Crenshaw, J TwoTwo, 13 over Bouvier, 15 over J Harvick. B Barrett is 16 back, 18 back is E Aurora, Ashley Horton, Vanco Seaman, Ashley Reynolds, Todd Montgomery, Hannah Smith, Samantha Grainger, P Albanus, and Kevin Joseph are 20 points back. So that's pretty simple as far as that is concerned for the playoff grid. This weekend, we've had non-playoff drivers go to victory lane in Trucks and Busch, and that meant nobody advanced into the next round of the playoffs. As we are green here at Chicagoland, the question for the Winston Cup Series: are we going to have the same fate happen, or will one of our 16 drivers get a win? Remember, if they go to victory lane today, regardless what happens next week at Michigan and the following week at Indianapolis, they're into the next round regardless of those two races. You don't want to be in spots 13 through 16 when that checker flag waves at Indianapolis, or you will be one of the 4 drivers kissing your playoff hopes goodbye. Todd Montgomery will lead the first lap. Oh, by the way, he is a playoff contender, I should point out. Because 7 drivers came in tied for 9th in the points. Last week, B Barrett pulled a shot clock cheese and got herself into the top 10, which she also got some playoff points on top of the 5 playoff points that she got during the reformatted playoff standings. Which, by the way, that's going to be critical and be possibly the difference maker of either moving on to the round of 12 or taking a first round exit. You know, you have 16 drivers battling for a championship. You have another 24 drivers who don't care about the playoffs. They just want to find victory lane. Todd Montgomery as he leads into turn number 3. If Todd Montgomery goes to victory lane today, he would be in the round of 12 and be the points leader because he'll have a 5 playoff point advantage when we have the reformatted playoff points after the first elimination race at Indianapolis next week. And all 40 cars did take the green, so that is good news there. J TwoTwo knows. In fact, all 16 playoff drivers know you need a solid run here today. You don't want to be you don't want to be below the playoff cut line after today's race, because you would end up going into Michigan in recovery, which you would end up needing a good run, or if you end up having 2 bad races here and next week, you could find yourself in Indianapolis in a must-win situation. Marty Stevens, who was recently eliminated from the playoffs, came up 24 points short of making the playoffs. Was so inconsistent, he fell outside the top 30 in points, and his win did not even count for a spot into this season's chase for the championship. That's a tough break for Marty Stevens. He will be back with Roush Fenway Racing next season when we run the 2004 paint schemes for the Cup Series. I will also post the calendar down in the description. Luigi Cadet will not be back with that 45 team next year. Next season, we're probably going to have as I thought the yellow was out for a second, but I was just seeing things. Next season, we're going to introduce the owner points situation. Notice a couple of drivers who are switching rides for next season, like Annie Thomas, who's moving over to the Audi program next season, as Ben Tennyson, another playoff contender, has now taken the lead. So we've had 2 playoff contenders lead. That would be Montgomery and Ben Tennyson. Of course, Tennyson finished 3rd in the regular season points. Of course, he got some playoff points. That was good for him going into the reformatted playoff standings entering today. Of course, he is 2nd in points. Of course, he just led a lap, so that bonus point for leading a lap, a key difference of whether or not he will move on to the round of 12 or not when we have the checker flag at Indianapolis. Luigi Cadet just trying to finish his season off with a trip to victory lane. Like I said, was announced he will not be back with this 45 team next season. Too inconsistent. Just want to finish these last 10 races for the Petties on a high note. And the caution is out for the first time today. I saw smoke in turn number 4. The caution's out for the first time today, just past the halfway mark here at Chicagoland. Now comes the big question. Were any of our 16 playoff drivers involved? If they were, this could possibly hurt these drivers and could put them in recovery mode heading into next week at Michigan. Let's see who was involved. Riley Anderson, who was recently eliminated, and a playoff contender, and Betty Barrett. Vanco Seaman. Oh, we got playoff drivers involved. Ponzo Albanus, Michael Anderson, Jacob TwoTwo, Cody Smart, Marty Stevens, Courtney Lynn, who was devastated missing the playoffs, Matty Crenshaw, Luke Knight, Jessica Miller, Brittany White, Josephine Bouvier just got rear-ended by Jerry Harvick. I remind you, those two are playoff contenders. Oh boy, caution's out for the first time today. Let's jump back, look at a replay to find out what happened, as a lot of playoff drivers were involved as we're past the halfway point of today's race. You know the sentence, too many cars in too small of a space, especially a 4 wide? Well, that's probably what happened. Matty Crenshaw, looks like, oh, Brenda Evelyn got a piece of it. Didn't realize she was involved. There's Ponzo Albanus, who got a piece of it. Ponzo Albanus is one of the playoff contenders. Jessica Miller, Zachary Taylor missed it. Brad Lewis did not. Betty Barrett got a piece of it. But it doesn't end there. Oh, Mia Watts also got a piece of it. Did she come back up and cause this next incident? No, she does not. I have a feeling the 9 had something to do with it. Yep, Courtney Lynn ran in the back of the 9. Not sure why the 9 decided to full throttle that. But then we had smoke in turn number 4, and I'm trying to figure out who caused this. And there's Jacob TwoTwo. Who did he plow into the back of? Or who plowed into him? Oh, Cody Smart, the points leader, just slammed in the back of the GM Goodwrench Chevrolet. And those two are done. Oh, boy. That's a tough break for them. So a lot of playoff drivers involved. I'm trying to figure out where the smoke came from, as I'm going to have to see where the smoke came from. There's another incident I didn't see. This is probably why Cody was back. Watch Brad Lewis. Oh, Senor Sean got turned by Jacob TwoTwo up into Cody Smart into Brittany White. So that would explain why Cody was so far back. Also why Senor Sean got involved in this incident. So a lot of playoff drivers in trouble here. As the yellow's out, let's jump back to the restart at Chicagoland. Getting ready to go back to green flag racing with less than 10 laps of racing to go. Luigi Cadet the leader, Ben Tennyson second, Todd Montgomery third, Ben Erickson fourth, Ashley Horton fifth, Annie Crenshaw sixth, Betty Johnson seventh, Annie Thomas eighth, Brooklyn Carter ninth, and Ashley Reynolds will be your top 10. Drivers out, and there are a lot of them. Luke Knight, Brad Lewis, Cody Smart will finish in 34th. Marty Stevens, who was recently eliminated, Matty Crenshaw, Riley Anderson, Betty Barrett, Jacob TwoTwo, and Vanco Seaman out of this race. So looks like, looking at the calculations right now, the 4 drivers going into the next week's race in the danger zone: Seaman, TwoTwo, Barrett, and Cody Smart. Oh boy. Don't tell me we're going to have a scenario where the top 2 in the championship, who've been battling each other for the regular season, could be a first-round exit. I hope not. Let's go back to green here at Chicago. So we're definitely guaranteed a new points leader. So for Smart, TwoTwo, Seaman, and Barrett, those 4 are going to need a good run next week at Michigan, or find themselves heading into our elimination race at Indianapolis in a must-win situation. Yikes. So now we figured out who are the 4 drivers in the danger zone. We have 28 of our 31 drivers on the lead lap, 31 of the 40 cars in the race, and as I said, 9 drivers out of the race, including 4 playoff contenders, and also including the top 2 in the championship for most of this regular season, believe it or not. Ben Tennyson ran a little wide. Todd Montgomery says, thank you very much. These are the only two playoff contenders that have been leading today. Ashley Horton and A Crenshaw also up here at the front. If they go to victory lane here today, along with the 77 and 01, doesn't matter what happens at Michigan and our first elimination race at Indianapolis. They're in the next round. Annie Thomas has crashed into the wall. That will bring out a caution, and it's a big wreck. Oh, Horton's in it. Brittany White failed to use the brakes. Annie Winters, Tatum Wright, Samantha Grainger, Bouvier's in it. That's playoff contenders. That's a lot of playoff contenders involved. Horton's in it. And we took the caution with 5 to go. We might have a green-white checker to finish off this race. Yellow's out for the second and final time today. Let's see what happened. Well, Melissa Cooper was the one that caused this yellow. Her car getting a little tight pushed Annie Thomas up into Ashley Horton, by the way, teammates, and took both of them into the wall. And, yep, there's where the rest of them, Tatum Wright got a piece of it. And there's the shot by the 10. We're going to look at the 10 in a second. There's the 1. Nailed the Stacker 2 dodge. And Ponzo Albanus, very lucky he didn't get involved. Kevin Joseph, another playoff contender involved. But let's, as I was trying to get to Ashley Horton, let's look at from Horton's perspective. Okay, there's the contact in the wall there. And she gets turned around. Who will be the first car that's going to nail the Valvoline Pontiac? Kevin Joseph. Then there's Bouvier. There's Mia Watts. Grainger, that's how they shot into Annie Thomas, who gets Brittany White. Not a good day to be a playoff driver, unfortunately. Unlike Trucks and Busch, that was calm and all that. We've had a lot of playoff drivers involved, and this could make things really interesting heading into next week. So, Yellow's out for the second time today. Let's jump back to the restart, Chicagoland. Looks like we're going to have a one-lap dash to finish off today's race. Ben Tennyson's the leader, Annie Crenshaw second, Melissa Cooper third, Todd Montgomery fourth, Luigi Cadet fifth, Betty Johnson, Ashley Reynolds, Ben Erickson, Hannah Smith, and Elaine Aurora. That is your top 10. Drivers out from that incident, a lot more. J Harvick's out of the race with a gearbox failure, then Margaret Jacobs, Tatum Wright, Ashley Horton, 26. Kevin Joseph, 27th. Annie Thomas. Bouvier will finish 29th. Samantha Grainger, 30th. And Brittany White, 31st. They joined Luke Knight, Brad Lewis, Cody Smart, Marty Stevens, Maddie Crenshaw, Riley Anderson, Betty Barrett, Jacob TwoTwo, and Vanco Seaman, who are all back in the garage area. 22 cars still on track, 19 on the lead lap, as this has been a complete crash fest here today, unlike our two races where wasn't too bad of a demolition derby. But things could get really interesting heading into next week at Michigan. As the pace car is off, the green and the white flag are out. One more lap to go. And like I said, we might have a driver punching their ticket into the next round of the playoffs. As we're on the last lap here at Chicagoland, we will race back no matter what the final outcome is. As Melissa Cooper looking to the inside. Cooper to the inside. Could we have a sweep of non-playoff drivers going to victory lane? Don't count out the 77 who could possibly have a threat in this thing. And it looks like we might go 3 in a row as Melissa Cooper is going to win the Camping World 400 at Chicagoland. Well, that got interesting now, didn't it? A win is a win for Melissa Cooper, who is leaving that 43 team to make way for Betty Johnson. 27th in the points, came 1 week too late. If this was the regular season finale, she would have been a driver in the playoffs, but that's 1 week too late, but that's all right. Todd Montgomery will get second. He'll take the points lead heading into next week At Michigan, third is Ben Tennyson, so he's looking pretty calm. I think Tennyson would take the points lead because let's see, Montgomery was 13 points back, but Montgomery and Tennyson are sitting good. Also, Crenshaw will be sitting good in fifth. Luigi Cadet, great run. Disappointing season for him. 40th in the standings, definitely a good run. Crenshaw fifth, Ashley Reynolds sixth, Hannah Smith seventh. So those two are going to sit pretty good going into Michigan next week. Ben Erickson, Betty Johnson, Elena Aurora complete the top 10. Aurora also going to be sitting pretty heading into next week at Michigan. Annie Winters was the last car to finish on the lead lap, and she finishes 19th. From 20th to 22nd, Lynn Albanus, Michael Anderson, as you look on down to the rest of the finishing results, they finished a lap down, and then everybody else finished out of the race due to crashes, with the exception of Jerry Harvick, who came home in 23rd. And this really is going to shake the points up massively. And I have confirmed, the four drivers in the danger zone will be Seaman, TwoTwo, Barrett, and Cody Smart. Those four need a good run at Michigan or find themselves heading into Indianapolis in a must-win situation. But thank you all for joining me for today's playoff opener at Chicagoland. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the PCSRA crew today. We share your full finish results. Your points and playoff points are down in the description. Keep an eye on that 12th position in the points cut line going into Michigan next week. And guess what? It's only Winston Cup next week because Trucks and Busch are off next week before we head to Indianapolis for Trucks and Busch's second race of the first round. It'll be the first elimination race for the Winston Cuppers. So we'll see you guys next week at Michigan. Until then, I've been Dieter signing off. Goodbye from Chicagoland, as you've been watching yet another broadcast of PCSRA TV, where champions are made since 2010 and 15 years is the best in racing around the world since 2017.